turn on the recording? Okay, thank you.
If nothing else, at least something.
Yeah. Yep.
At school, you brought drinks hit room for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Call to order at City of Rhinelander Common Council. It's Monday, January 11th, 2021 at 6 p.m. We're in the council chambers. The agenda has been posted and the media has been notified. Please call roll.
Chris Fredrickson.
Here.
Thomas Barnett.
Here.
Andrew Larson.
Here.
Carrie Michalowski. Here. Thomas Kelly.
Here.
Gerald Anderson. David Holt.
Here.
Eileen Daniel. Here. Ryan Rossing.
Here. We have quorum. All please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comments up first. I'll ask any of the alderpersons if they have somebody that they are speaking for. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I got this just a little while ago, so let me pull it up. This is from a Gary Zarda, 349 North Barrett Avenue. Hello, please consider the following for public comment at this evening's meeting. I would like to hear about whether or not the city has an ordinance, as some other cities do, about the removal of campaign signs from yards at some point after the election. There are a number up in town, as well as at least one bit of artwork with a cartoon character urinating on Nancy Pelosi. It is displayed prominently on Stevens Street for all visitors to our community to see. This is a small issue and brings up questions of free speech, not to mention the joyless task of knocking on disgruntled doors. But please consider whether this clutter fading along our streets and sidewalks represents our community well. After all, there's been so much else that has looked great, ranging from Dome, which will drive businesses to our town in the near future, to the beautiful lights of the Northwoods, and it's a really cool moment with the New Year's night fireworks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Then I'll call it in the public. Patrick Winger. Go ahead and state your name and your address when you get up there, and you have pushed the button and it'll turn orange at the top, and now you're there.
Okay. Hi, my name is Patrick Winger. I serve with the board of the Oneida County Humane Society. There's an agreement on tonight's agenda which was prepared and placed for your approval that contain terms that have not been agreed to by the Humane Society. The agreement was drafted without our consent of terms and reduces the compensation for services provided by 25% from the amount that we originally asked for. We request that you table this agreement until the city administration works cooperatively with us to come to terms that we agree on and cost to cover the services. Efforts by the Humane Society to reach an acceptable agreement for services with the City of Rhinelander for 2021, using the terms that have been used since 2012, have been ignored. These efforts included a meeting in December with the administrator and Mayor Fredrickson, in which they agreed on the need to work together moving forward. Wisconsin statutes require municipalities to provide stray and bite hold facilities. It is our hope that we can reach an agreement expeditiously so we can continue to provide the services to the City of Rhinelander residents.
Thank you. Moving forward, mayor's comments. First of all, I would like to recognize and welcome Doreen St. Ange. She is our HR generalist. If you could just stand up so everybody can kind of get a preview of you. Thank you. She will prepare something for our next meeting, even just with some of her background, just as a more formal introduction. Started January 4th, and I'm excited to have her. She's quite the professional. Next, also, the food pantry asked us to express the gratitude of the giving of our city and specific donors, of which I won't point out, but at the same time, the fact that during a pandemic we have such a giving city, I do want to share that with you too. So that was the two comments I had for that. Meeting minutes. Approval of the November 9th Common Council meeting minutes. Do it.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 9th as presented.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. B, approval of the December 28th, 2020 council meeting minutes.
Holt, I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 28th, 2020.
Mikulowski, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Ordinance first reading, ordinance 2020-15, amending 2.01.07, Police and Fire Commission. Steve?
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to indicate that at the last meeting of the council, I asked for the council members to get back to me referencing what they wanted to have in this ordinance with regard to the residency requirements and the makeup of the Police and Fire Commission. So what I tried to do is synthesize each and every one of the comments that I received over the period of the last 2 weeks. And for the public especially, I want you to know that just about every single council person, in fact, I think every council person did get back to me, did have their comments, did make suggestions. And so what you have before you tonight is just probably as succinct as I possibly could be, conglomeration of the different concepts. And what I'd like to, just before we vote on this, talk about a little bit. Oh, and by the way, don't worry about the numbering of this. The 01 has no impact at all because we don't put a number on the ordinance until we pass it. So by the time we pass this could be 10 or 8 or something like that. It's just the first one that I did this year. So that's why you see it say 202101. Okay, that said, the concepts that came out of the discussion were, there seemed to be kind of an agreement amongst the majority of the council members, not all, but the majority of the council members, that expanding beyond the city limits was okay because of the commitment that people had to the city of Rhinelander, and that the city of Rhinelander was really the hub of the area as far as police, fire, and emergency services, which really the Police and Fire Commission oversees. And therefore, there was a feeling that expanding it out was appropriate. Now, the suggestions went everywhere from listing different townships to listing so many miles away to listing the school district. I mean, there were various ways of identifying what would be the parameter. And the one I chose to put in this ordinance, and there's nothing magical about it, well, there is one thing that's magical about it, and that was the surrounding townships. The concept there was they have political boundaries. It's easy to tell what those boundaries are. School districts can change their boundaries every time somebody petitions to join the district or leave the district. So those boundaries can change. 40 miles out, we can argue, is it 40 miles from City Hall, or is it 40 miles from the nearest city limits? And to avoid those kind of arguments, I picked the surrounding townships because those have geographic boundaries. Those boundaries aren't going to change. You can, there should be no lack of understanding who's in and who's now out. The other thing that did resonate in most of the comments was that they wanted people that were involved in the community. That they certainly didn't want to see somebody on the Police and Fire Commission that was only here 5 or 6 months out of the year. That this should be somebody that was really part of the greater Rhinelander community and involved in the greater Rhinelander community. And that's where I added the words activity involved in the community on a regular basis. I did put in the reference to the statute because it should be there, and that's the one I think everybody understood that I've talked about before, that you have to identify your political affiliation, and there can be only so many members of one political party versus another. The other thing that was added was the concept of term limits. As you know, Police and Fire Commission are 5-year terms, and so this allows for a 2 years, so that'd be 10 years, but also because the vast majority of people on the commission have a tendency to filling somebody else's unexpired term, we said that partial terms would not be counted towards the 2-term limit. And then finally, the reference to the Wisconsin statutes that does create police and fire commissions for communities of our size. So that's the ordinance for your discussion tonight. It's not saying this is the one you vote yes and no on, but I wanted to put something together that did take your ideas, your concepts as a council, and put them on a piece of paper. And I, again, appreciate everybody's input. And I think I fairly well expressed, except Gerald's not here, I will tell you that Gerald's comments to me were people should live in the city, and he strongly believed that. But I think otherwise that, and he did share that with every one of the council members, but not with the public, so I'm sharing it with the public. I'm sure he would be fine with that. So that is my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So it's open for discussion at this point. Ryan had his hand up, I believe Tom, and then Tom.
Yeah, my idea was to be within the school district of Rhinelander. I think being a HODAG is obviously far more than being a city of Rhinelander residents. So I thought that the school district of Rhinelander was a good idea, but I support the stuff that was put in this this ordinance for this reading with the surrounding townships, if that's what the body would like. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I was, reading over the ordinance, and then I was also asking my constituents, how they felt about it. And I think that the majority of my constituents, at least, feel that it should be within the city limits. I be point blank honest, I'm neither here nor there on the subject. I can see the positives and negatives of both arguments. But, obviously when it comes to voting, I stand with my constituents, and if that's what my constituents want me to vote, that's the way I'm gonna vote.
Tom?
I could vote for this for one reason, in that it contains the statement that it only served more than 2 full terms. We've got some people on that Fire and Police Commission that have been there for quite a while. The other thing is, although library district is one way to set boundaries, as Steve Sorensen just mentioned, our school districts change, but library districts don't, and that includes Rhinelander and the 4 townships. For a total population of 18,000 people, I wonder if our Fire and Police Commission is up to the task serving 18,000 people.
Eileen?
I'd also point out that anybody who applies to be on the commission does have to be approved by not only the mayor, but the city council. So if somebody comes before us that we, and I'm guessing they would have to plead their case or something along those lines, if they're not involved in the community, if they are snowbirds, if there's something that just doesn't sit right with us, we do have the ultimate say in whether they join the commission or not. So it's not like people could just randomly show up and be on the commission.
David?
Thank you. I think this is well written and includes the spirit of the discussion of the council. It includes one thing that's definitely an improvement over my suggestion, which was having somebody who is actively engaged in the community on a regular basis, as opposed to something as strict as a business owner who lives outside of the city limits, something like that, right? Because there are many different types of involvement and active involvement in city life and community life. So I don't see a problem with it. I didn't get any responses either way, frankly, from constituents of mine. So.
All right. Carrie?
I do like the 2-term limits. I still think the activity involved is a vague and subjective measure. At how much activity do they have to be involved in the city in order to qualify? I think that's kind of vague to say. But as with Tom, my constituents as well feel that if they're on the Police and Fire Commission for Rhinelander, they need to be in the city limits. So I feel too that I would have to vote that way as well.
Thank you. All right. Excellent. So discuss anything further with Steve as far as nailing it down for a second reading, which will be brought forth in its completion where we would vote on it, and that would be at the next meeting. All right, moving on. Ordinance 2020-01, this is the true 01, PE 1218-5081 Grossman Avenue. This is page 13 in your packet. This is the second reading. Does anybody in the public have anything to say? Well, the public hearing was handled at Planning Commission, I'm sorry. So, gotcha.
Well, Mr. Mayor, you should mention that this went before the Planning Commission. There was a public hearing, and that the Planning Commission did approve and recommend approval by the council.
I will make a motion to accept ordinance 2021-01, annexation of PE 1218-5081 Grossman Avenue.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. The motion carries. Monthly reports from departments. At this point, we will skip the clerk's department for the time being. EMS and fire. Anything to add?
I would just like to add that since I wrote my report, I wanted the council to know that the medics within the Rhinelander Fire Department are assisting the county in COVID vaccinations. So we're sending members every day over to the health department to assist in giving COVID vaccinations. So I'm really proud of the crew.
Thank you. Cool. Engineering. Mark Barton. Okay. Finance. Nothing to add. Fleet, golf course, inspections. Nothing to add. Legal.
The only thing I would add is that we did receive the final piece of the puzzle that Oneida Street, 21 North Oneida Street will be raised in the very, very near future. We've been through all the hoops, and everything as of today has been set in motion for that. We also are progressing on 2 others very rapidly. So the promise, maybe a month or 2 late, but we're getting her done.
Thank you.
And I would thank Terry too for his help on that. I would thank Terry for his help on that too.
3-4 years in the running. Yeah. Museum complex. Parks, buildings, and grounds. Police? Streets? Technology? Thank you. Water? Tom's out. Wastewater? Excellent.
So prior to the meeting, I handed out a copy of the 2019 CMAR report, and I'd be happy to go through that with everybody if they'd like. So really what this report is, it's a report card for the wastewater treatment plant and operations and discharge out there. So if we go down to the first box, influent flow and loadings, that basically covers any industrial pretreatment that needs to be done, and also a properly functioning sewer collection system. We roll down to effluent quality. We have a discharge permit based on BOD, and BOD is a measure of strength in wastewater. Our maximum limit is 45 milligrams per liter on a weekly basis and 30 milligrams per liter on a monthly basis. Currently, we've been averaging about 16 milligrams per liter on that, so we're well below our discharge permit on our effluent, which is what goes directly into the Wisconsin River. So, really important part of it. Also, in the effluent, we monitor total suspended solids. Also, we have a limit of 45 milligrams per liter weekly, with a monthly average of 30 milligrams per liter. Currently, we've been averaging just under 8 milligrams per liter, so also way below our permit levels on that too. Phosphorus is another part of our discharge permit. Our limit on that is 1 milligram per liter average over a month. Currently, our treatment's been really good on that. December's average was 0.41, and prior to that, November, we averaged a 0.67. So again, well within that discharge limit. Our treated biosolids, those go out for bid every 2 years and typically are used as a soil enhancement, a Milorganite type of product. Our fecal coliform limit in that is a maximum limit of 1,000. This year's finished biosolids tested at 8.5. So again, well below our limit for biosolids. Staffing, we were running pretty short on staff here last year. We have filled both those positions and we are back to a full staff. So we're in a much better spot with that. And to reference the first set of items we went through, we got grades of A's on all those items because we were well within our permit. The only grade that was not an A was financial management, and that was only due to quite a while since the rates had been reviewed last. Those rates got reviewed here recently, and I would expect a higher grade on that in this next year's report. So overall, our grade point average was 3.94, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our staff.
Good job.
They do a great job out there.
Thank you. So the council takes notice, there will be a resolution that'll come in the next time so that this can get moved on and it becomes a part of that. Yeah, so look for that next week, and this is what it's referring to. Is it approved in the fall? We've already approved, okay. Okay, gotcha. Excellent. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
All right, Mark is back in the room. Back up real quick. Do you have any engineering or special projects that you would like to speak on during reports? Okay, thank you. I will
Holt, I will make a motion to accept the monthly reports from departments as presented.
Barnett, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on. Reports from boards, commissions, and committees. This is page 33 and 37 in your packet. From the Planning Commission from January 5th. As we already heard, we had the public hearing on the annexation, and we approved that. These were the other two parts. It was a conditional use permit for Gerald Chidell, owner of property of 400 South Pelham Street, RH 296, for the purpose of locating and dwelling or rooming units below the second floor. Property is zoned B2, Central Business District. I'll accept on a motion to approve the recommendation from the Planning Commission on this conditional use permit.
We ask any questions about it?
We can after.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept conditional use permit for Gerald Chadell as presented.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Just for clarification, approve, not accept, but approve.
Excuse me, approve.
I just, that's the proper, I just want to make sure the record's clear. Sorry.
Is that in the American Family Insurance side that they want to do stuff, or is that taking over the whole downstairs of the building?
It's the back side of the American Family. It's not even the whole section.
It's just
Right.
the location
Yeah.
of the floor.
It's just like a quarter of that building, but towards Triggs,
Yep.
that side.
Yeah. Wasn't there an American Family Insurance agent in there? Is that where he's putting that? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
She, okay. Yeah, Tom, a little bit closer to the mic, and for clarification, just so you know, the answer to your question is on the back side of that property next to that agency. But go ahead and, for the record, state the question again.
Well, my question was, is that the old American Family Insurance office? That was my question.
It is. It's just not taking up the whole office. It's just the back side.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Introduction to new business. Appointment of Teresa Lassig as the city clerk. This is page 38 in your packet. I wrote a letter about the process and where we're sitting.
I will make a motion to approve Teresa Lassig as city clerk.
Daniel, second?
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
What page is that on that you put the letter in about that? I can't remember.
38.
Thanks.
Tom?
I would just like to make a comment welcoming her to our city
Let's
council.
approve my appointment first.
Oh, I thought we did. I'm sorry.
No, that's
Yeah, we
okay.
didn't.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those
Now I
opposed? Yes, absolutely.
Now I can say welcome.
Can you say opposed
And
again?
it'll
You
be good
didn't really
working with
complete
you.
that when you said all those opposed.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion
Thank you.
carries. Now you can welcome her.
All right, welcome.
Yeah. Actually, it was a pretty interesting process. The first time we got to use NeoGov in its totality, which is nice because it allows people to grade and do things based on separate opinions in different parts of the room or different, parts. I like NeoGov at this point, but that's because it's the first one I've been exposed to, so I really wouldn't say that it's the best. All right, moving on. And we'll back up real quick. Anything to report?
Not at this time.
All right, now that she's the clerk officially. Excellent. Appointment of Tom Giroux as the city forester. There's nothing in the packet for this.
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Tom Giroux as city forester.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There's not a person more passionate about trees than Tom Giroux, and I'm not kidding. When it comes to makes, models, how to cut them, when to prune them, what to do with them, it's a good appointment. So I thank you for your encouragement on that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Approve the lease agreement with Oneida County Fair for 2021 in the use of Pioneer Park. This is page 39 in your packet.
I would just like to say off the bat that I am open for giving input on this, but I will abstain from any vote because of my connection with the Oneida County Fair.
Thank you. Yeah, well,
I'll
Zach,
just, real brief comment. It's a straightforward lease agreement. I understand it was worked on, last spring maybe, and it's finally making its way to the council now. There wasn't a fair last year because of COVID, but the one question that you might weigh in on in the future is the utilization of utilities. Right now, there's not an easy way for us to separately meter those, so it'd be a kind of an in-kind contribution. But generally speaking, that's a zero-cost item to the city, the way the lease is currently drafted.
I'll accept the motion.
Rossing, I would make a motion to approve the lease agreement with the Oneida County Fair for the 2021 use of Pioneer Park.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Eileen?
This isn't the first time we've had a lease with them, is it?
No.
Okay, so has anything changed between last year's lease and this year's lease?
Yes.
And what would that be specifically?
We clarified some of the maintenance issues. We clarified some of the the cost issues. A lot of those were up in the air.
Okay.
But when Daniel and I first looked at this, when I first came on board and we were working on it, before we knew we weren't going to have a fair, that's when we started clarifying these issues. But these have all been negotiated with the fair board, and there's, that's what's different. There's more clarity in the contract, there's more detail in the contract, so that we don't have, like, who's going to clean that up? Well, that's your park, you clean it up. Well, you made the mess, kind of, that kind of, discussion. Okay. So we took issues and we put them, and honestly, it's a much better contract than what was there before. And it's, as the mayor's going to tell you in a second, it's probably just a short-term contract, so.
The one thing that I would ask, now that Gaber Electric is shutting its doors, I know that they were the city's electricians, and that was the electrician that would come out and set up the power grids for the fair. Do we have any potential electricians that are going to be the city's electrician?
I would ask actually Jeremy if he has any leeway on that. Go ahead and stand up to the mic, sorry.
While he's making his way up, I know there was a question. I understand the vendors largely have private generation of power. I know they connect in New York.
Very few. Okay. What we use the grids for is the entertainment, like the main stage and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the food vendors and stuff generally have their own electricity, but they do use the electricity at the park as well.
And yeah, Gaber knows our parks inside and out, so I have been working with a different electric company a little bit and showing them the ropes, so okay. We're going to hope to do the same thing. And before the week of the fair, I am going to show them the boards and all that to get them familiarized with all that.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious about that.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Approval of Resolution 2020-29, establishing remote meeting procedure using internet meeting devices. This is page 47 in your packet.
Rosalind, I'll make a motion to approve, so we can talk about this, for Resolution 2020-29, to establish remote meeting procedure using internet meeting services.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
Yeah, I see on the second page, the last section under 7 says closed sessions, and there's nothing, that's the last that I have of that. So does that just mean that it's consistent with what we've done and we're not allowing that? Is that what that means in that policy?
I suspect the duplicative page or the third page there did not get incorporated, but I'll read the text as it's drafted. It's whenever an agenda requires a closed session, no virtual participation shall be permitted unless the presiding officer and the council or members of the governmental commissions or committees can determine a means that would guarantee that no third party may overhear or otherwise compromise the integrity of the confidentiality of authorized closed session.
So does that mean that we would vote on that on an individual basis and what we have available at the time for possible room or,
And the parameters of it, a separate room in this building where they might be, whatever that might be at that time.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Just that paragraph was omitted somehow. I think when they probably brought it into the packet that page maybe got left out.
Yeah, because when I drafted it, I drafted that paragraph.
We discussed it. That's why I'm surprised. We
Yeah.
discussed this today, and I did not look at the packet again after that to address it. I apologize.
So everybody understands the concept is that you would not have electronic closed sessions unless there were specific situations that you as a council believed dictated it would be appropriate for you to have, and then you would still have to establish the parameters to make sure that the integrity of the closed session is being maintained. And what that means is, the example that I was given is, if you were in the situation where there was flooding, was the one I was given, and you were all working from your homes, and you still had to have a closed session, the person would have to take their camera or their computer and spin it around to make sure that everyone could see that they're in a closed room and there's nobody else in the room, and then you could proceed. And you would also be asked to swear that no one else is being able to see or view it. You just need some kind of a record to protect the integrity of the reason that you're having the closed session. You know, usually it's you when you're talking about personnel, and the person who's being discussed doesn't want it to leave the closed session. That's why you have to prove the integrity of the room, and you have to take whatever efforts you possibly can. Hopefully you never have to deal with that situation, but there are cities throughout the state of Wisconsin that are doing it on a regular basis for various and sundry reasons. And we're finding many challenges that are coming out by people who say, well, my bid got discussed at the coffee shop because their closed session wasn't actually closed because somebody else must have been in the room, and something of that nature. So whatever you do when you get to that paragraph, which gives you lots of strength in how you want to set it up, you have to do it on a case-by-case basis.
I can tell you, just even working from home, twice quarantined now for COVID, having my kids or anybody else, obviously the dogs, everybody got the dog episode of them barking. It's extremely hard to prove you have a secure area. So that being the case, we left it as such that it was open, but it was only open to agreed upon terms with discretion, not as a whole open.
I'm in favor of the ordinance as it's written, but I just want to make a note that I'm not particularly fond of the closed session from a remote area, but I want to leave it open so that if we have a room here, a secure room, and we want to vote on that on a certain situation for whatever it may be, we have the option to do that.
Thanks.
Tom?
My only question and I'm going along with Ryan, is we still maintain control of closed session?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Approve the agreement, operating agreement with Oneida County Humane Society, page 49 in your packet.
Let me just basically introduce this as this is a first reading. This was an attempt by our, meaning the administrative team, to put something together in a format that looked like a contract, that was a contract, because what we had previously was basically just a statement that said, we'll provide services for this much money. We took the state statute and we put down the items that the statute requires us to do, and that's what we're paying, so it was clear that what we're paying for. We also put some options in the agreement that would allow for them, the Humane Society to serve as a licensing agent. We tried to work something in there that would take the concepts they had discussed with us and to put them in a format that was, first of all, contractual, and second of all, explained exactly what the expectations were from both sides. I was a little offended by the comment that was made tonight to suggest that we somehow did this behind closed doors or in backwoods or anything. Their attorney has communicated with me 3 times today, and basically I've told her that this is the first reading. We want to make sure that this council still wants to go ahead with this and under these kind of terms. There's no reason for us to negotiate with you if we don't know what the council wants first. So this is not an attempt to ramrod anything down on the Humane Society. This is an attempt to get a parameter from this council so that we have our discussions with their sides. We know what you want, so we don't go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So please understand that there was no attempt by myself or any of the administrative team to try to ram something down. We're just trying to clarify who's doing what so that we know that we're living up to the statutory requirements of the state of Wisconsin. That's what this was all about.
I'm going to explain real quick too. One of the difficulties, even being the mayor, doing contracts, looking at contracts, vetting them, or anything else, is understanding what you guys would have before we bring it before you. Either it comes in detailed fashion, or it comes in non-detailed fashion, left for me to try to figure out and get it done that way. So putting this together, because we did have that discussion with the Humane Society as a possibilities, we received a first draft of it from them. We turn around and put these things in there, of which would be no additional cost to them on them, and then brought it before you, so you can say that is our expectations of the Oneida County Humane Society. Also, there's a pretty good process as it goes along that Zach had just this morning, and I'll let you discuss that too, where a contract is put before the body before then it goes to the signing parties.
Yeah, that happened to be on the Oneida County Board's meeting this morning for the CDBG close, which we've talked previously about, and they too took up their portion, and for their part, the agreement with the Humane Society. I'm not sure what else further you'd like me to speak to, but
that was before that was signed.
Yeah, and I think it's, we have to bring it before the body before you give him the authorization to execute and sign the agreement. So obviously this is one of the steps in the process, just like the fair lease or anything else. And in fact, the fair lease is another example where they brought that before the county board before we actually even saw the lease. So, you can always debate the semantics or the order of events, but as has been said so well by Steve, it's a matter of getting your attention on this agreement before we entertain any execution.
Yeah, so far seeking external contracts, or if you will, was one an investigation where I found them, got them rolling, and then got approval. The other one was where everything came before you before, and this is the before you before. So it's almost like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't on whichever direction, but that's what our explanation of what's happening is happening. Tom?
My question is, can we table the first reading or just wait until the second reading and have the people from the Humane Society and people from the city hammer out their differences, it seems there's a little discrepancy in the amount of money involved. And I'd like to see that settled before we vote on this.
Well, the amount of money is already decided. You voted on that as part of your budget. That's not an issue at this time. It was the contract differential between what they had originally proposed and what we redrafted. It just simply, we added the services to the contract. I don't think there's any disagreement about the dollar amount at this point. They know what the dollar amount is because it was part of the budget you approved for the year. It's really a semantics it's really semantics at this time, just how it's presented. And there may be some tweaking that has to go on. My suggestion would be that you at least tell us whether this contract is written, forgetting the dollar amount, because you voted on that already, whether this contract is written is something you're okay with. If you're not, I don't want to go negotiate off of a contract you're not okay with.
Tom?
So this is one of the things that I've been really struggling with this last month. I've been doing a lot of talking. You know, I talked with you and Zach about this and everything, and I've talked to a lot of my constituents as well. And I think that we should table this until the next meeting, and I think that the Humane Society should come and present to us, give us a brief history of the Rhinelander Animal Shelter moving into what is now the Oneida County Humane Society. It's obvious that with the gentleman's presentation from the Humane Society that I don't think they're on full board in this agreement. According to my constituents that I have talked to, they're quite upset over this. And I think that in the spirit of working together in such times of contention that we're in right now, I think in the spirit of working together and having some kind of cohesive agreement would be better for not only us, but our community as well. So I think that tabling it until next time we have the time to really read through this and understand what's going on in here. And I would hope that the Oneida County Humane Society would bring forth what they're not getting in this and what they want to get in this and what kind of compromise they're willing to work out with us. So that's just my thoughts.
I have a phone call tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock with their people. I want to know what you specifically do not like about this contract, what they specifically have told you. Because we had a meeting that was well over an hour and a half here. They went through everything, and we took everything that was discussed and we put it in the contract. So what are they telling you that we don't know about?
They're not telling me anything specific. They're just claiming that there's things in the contract that they did not agree to.
Like what?
They didn't give me any specifics.
Yeah, see, that's the problem, you know, Tom, and I don't mind dealing with that, but it's very hard to deal with generalities. That's why we put the generalities out there, so that we'd have something to talk about. But the whole conversation we had with them before was all about money. It was not about specifics.
Right.
And so if it's all about money, as we clearly explained to them, you already voted on that.
Mm-hmm.
The question becomes, if there are specifics, we need to know the specifics. Yeah, and I especially need to know for my meeting at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning with their attorney.
Does the gentleman in the audience he's gone, okay.
Can I talk?
Yeah, Eileen had her hand up first.
No, she didn't.
Yes, she did.
She just said no.
Oh, okay. She did have her hand up first, though.
All right. I just want to say I really, really respect Bria and her staff and the people at the Humane Society. They do a great job. I've worked with them in my capacity, in my profession. And this tension has come over from when Daniel Guild was here, and now Daniel Guild is gone. We have other administrative staff here, and it's still a problem. So I agree with you, Tom. There's some stuff that needs to be hammered out. I don't know if it's money. I don't know if Bria wants to talk tonight. If she wants to come up to the podium, she can tell us herself if she'd like what these potential issues are. But I would like to move past this, and I agree, Tom, we should be able to get along as a city and humane society who does a great work for our community.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I think that the biggest hurdle that we're seeing is lack of communication between the city and the Humane Society. We spent, like you said, an hour and a half in December discussing with you about open communication. There's been discussion about the financial side of things. You're paying for a service that we offer for the community, right? So yes, you're paying for the service. Yes, money makes the world go round, absolutely. But with that being said, there was no discussion or conversation with us when it came to the financial side of things. As noted in your budget, it said requested amount of the $30,000 that is indicated that we're getting, but there was no discussion or welcoming the Humane Society to come to a meeting to discuss what you're paying for, what services you're paying for. As with the amount for the agreement, when it comes to that, there has been very few emails back and forth between the attorney, city administrator, mayor, with the Humane Society. And then there was no discussion. And then we had to go onto the website today to see that it was on the agenda without knowledge that there was an agreement out there.
Could I ask a question, please? For clarification, so the main issue with the earlier statement in public comment and your statement here, I just want clarification for myself, is not with the contract right here in the packet as much as it's with the process that has existed in the relationship.
I agree, yes, the process is a huge hurdle.
So for the contract that we've got in front of us, is there anything that needs to be specifically addressed? I think that's what Attorney Sorensen is asking the council to do. My challenge, right, as a member of this board is I don't know what to address.
Absolutely.
I understand that we need to address the communication culture. That's something that we can do moving forward. That's not something we can fix, that's in the writing of the contract.
Yes.
Right here.
So the contract itself definitely has some verbiage in there that we need to discuss, and moving forward, that's something between the attorneys and the board that need to do. At this time, it's not something that I feel that should be under discussion, but it is not written to a point where we agree to.
But what specifically don't you agree to?
There's a lot that was added to perhaps Karen's on the board as well. Perhaps she can come and talk about some things. I feel honestly that this is something that my board can discuss with you, and the attorneys can as well.
Hi, my name is Karen Matchlet. I'm on the board of directors. When we saw the terms that had been added to this agreement, it was basically everything beyond the bullet item that starts with sterilization. Everything beyond that was added without our knowledge and without our consent. Now, can we do some of those things? Absolutely. Will we try and do those things? If we can. But there are some things in here that the contract is putting on the Humane Society, which turns us into the city's humane officer. That is not the role of the Humane Society. That is not the price that you are paying for services from the Humane Society. If you want to hire a humane officer, by all means, fulfill your duties as required by state statute by doing it. The Humane Society's mission and role throughout the county is not what is written up in here. We are looking into and moving forward with the process of additionally selling dog licenses. That's one of the things that you are addressing in here. That's not an overnight flip the switch kind of option. There are resolutions that have to be passed in order to give us the authority to do that, in addition to the municipalities. There's just a lot of things in here. And Mr. Attorney, for you to just say, well, what don't you like in here? It's another hour meeting to go through that point by point so that we can bring in the correct people to address those items, which is why we feel like it would be best served to delay this approval of this agreement if it's not an agreement we're going to sign. Thank you.
I'd like to say that you answered my question very well, and that's what I was trying to say to the council, is what we did is, you're exactly right. We put down the things that we are required to do as a city, which would, in essence, ask the Humane Society to fulfill the responsibilities of a humane officer under the statute. And if this is where the council's got to make a decision, and that's why really I'm glad what you said. You really helped me, because if the Humane Society is not going to accept that role, but accept a different role or a more limited role, then we as a council have to struggle with how are we going to take care of those other aspects, which could mean that we have to hire somebody else or do something else. So what you pointed out tonight was very valuable, because that's the kind of thing that we need to know as we approach this. Because if the Humane Society is willing to take on the responsibilities, great. If they're not, then you as a council have to figure out another way to do it. That's what's important. So I appreciate and I thank you both very much for those comments.
Do you want to respond before I call on?
I just wanted to tell a little bit about the history that the Humane Society has partnered with the Sheriff's Department and the City of Rhinelander Police Department, where they're the ones that go out and do the law enforcement side of things, the humane officer side, and when the animal needs to be removed, that's when we come in. This agreement is tying us to the 173 code.
Yep, it is. No question about it.
Andrew?
After whatever we decide, whatever, can we get like maybe copies of past agreements that we've had with them to see the difference in the way they were written?
Yep. Eileen?
I'm wondering what part the county plays in those sorts of duties as well. I'm guessing there are dogs that come in that aren't specifically Rhinelander. You said you work with the sheriff. So has the county put together their contract with you already? And were these sorts of things addressed in that?
Yes, the county has signed the agreement with us. It's very similar to the agreement that we proposed initially.
Any further discussion?
I just have a question for Steve. I mean, I don't know what kind of time crunch we're on. I don't think we really are. Is this something that can be in your meeting tomorrow? Can that be discussed, Steve, or
The first version of the contract that came to us said that they would stop services on January 1st based on their terms. So that's also what brings us back to the council coming here, is we received a letter from their attorney saying, if you don't sign this, it'll be done January 1st. So that's why we came up with our part of it. We brought it before council as suggested so that we can get agreement on what gets sent back to them to be signed. Our contract was written to be advantageous for the city when it comes to services that the Humane Society can perform or cannot perform, and or we have to look for ways to perform for our citizens, one or the other. Mm-hmm. So that's why the contract before you represents that point in history.
Well, it sounds like we're not going to be able to have anything signed, because if we approve this, they don't like it, and if we table this, we're past January 1st, so we're out of services if they're not going to provide them.
Yeah, we are already out of services at this point as far as I guess their understanding would be. We have not received anything saying they decline us service at this point, but that's where we're at.
I think we're all operating under good faith, and Ryan, I think that we can all get to a point within the next 2 weeks that we have an agreement of some type. It was so clear tonight, and that's what I really wanted to bring this up for, is to understand where the Humane Society saw their responsibilities, because if indeed by putting the things that were in the statute under Chapter 173 into this agreement, and the Humane Society says we don't want to, we're not equipped to do that, then we have to, between now and next meeting, we have to evaluate how that's going to get done. I mean, certainly what they were doing in the past can continue, but it did not fulfill your statutory requirements. And so we need to figure out how to do that. So we'll talk to the Humane Society, meaning administration, between now and the next council meeting, and we'll clean up the contract to the paragraphs they don't want or do want. But I want you as a council to know that we have responsibilities under the statute, that we have to figure out a way to accomplish those responsibilities, because we can't just do what I think has been done in the past. And I'll be very candid about this, and maybe you don't like me for this, but in the past we just kind of didn't worry about some of those responsibilities. And that's fine until something goes wrong. And I made the mistake of reading a law. I made the mistake of putting that law onto a piece of paper. And the reason I did it was exactly what happened tonight. We found out what the Humane Society wanted to do, what you wanted to do, and now we'll get the detail and we'll work it out. That's a positive. You know, look at it as positive, because it really is. We didn't storm the Humane Society, nor did they storm us. So life is good.
Eileen.
Just really quickly, going back to how it's been done in the past, I know that the city clerk's office issued licenses. I know the police department and the county sheriff acted as the humane officers. Can't we simply state in the contract that that will continue? That's how that's addressed? Or do we have to appoint a particular officer as the humane officer? My next question, wait, I'm not quite done. Sorry, Steve. The money that they've asked for is based on what they've provided in the past. I think they kind of feel like, had they known that all these additional duties were going to be put on their plate, they might have tried to up the amount, knowing that maybe they have to hire extra staff. Maybe they have to increase capacity for certain animals, that sort of thing. And so I do kind of feel, maybe I can understand why they feel blindsided. It doesn't quite seem kosher.
Yeah, but just
to me.
remember how we felt when we got a contract that says, if you don't sign this piece of paper, we're cutting off services.
I understand that as well.
Yeah.
However,
Let's make sure that all the facts are out, you know.
And you've stated that quite clearly. It was on the record. But like I said, when we did our budget, the Humane Society budget was approved that they would continue to do the things they had done in the past, and they had not done any of these things.
That's not true. They did a lot of these things. Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, like the licensing and the officer part and the serving the person, that kind of thing was handled by the police department and the sheriff's department, from what I understand from Bria. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get a handle on how this all came to be.
We're only talking about the dogs that are brought in there, that are being sent out to another person, being adopted, that we're asking them to license those dogs. If that person wants to bring that dog down to City Hall to get a license, they can do that.
You don't have to bring your dog to get a license.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm going to clarify again also, they talked about a lot of communication in this. Once again, the handicap is, we talked to our lawyer, it's one conversation. We talked to the body, which is what we're doing right now to get clarity, is another conversation before we go back with another conversation. I don't know that even the whole board was an approval of, we're cutting off services by January 1st. We don't get to be a part of that conversation just as much as they're not and we're allowing them to have a part in this conversation. So it's it's evident that that's not a conducive relationship to getting things done. Quite often, it's not a conducive relationship. That's why it gets left as, we'll just do it the same way we did it last year for a long period of time where things get missed. Bria?
Yes, there was conversation about cutting services or decreasing services without a contract, but you have to understand that we are the service provider, and if we don't have a contract, we don't know what's expected of us. You guys did get that contract well in advance before January 1st, and there was no discussion ahead of time. So I feel that there was enough time for discussion, and this just came out. In our opinion, we were just sent it today, so I guess I don't know where that goes with the lack of conversation on the agreement itself. Of course, we're going to continue to provide services for now. As we had a discussion via email about the payment will still be given to us if we continue those services until the agreement is talked about.
So there was communication back.
Yeah, on the original set of emails a while back, yep.
And that was without discussion even of what we consider a part of the contract. We said we would still pay you.
I'm not here to fight, Mayor.
I'm not here to fight either, but we're talking
Yeah.
about, you're saying that you gave us this possibility of a contract a long time ago. We didn't do anything about it. We expressed back that we would still continue to pay as we went through and looked at what we were doing. And it might not have been even in those words, but that's what the body has to take care of, is what is going to be in that contract. I cannot sign a contract without the body's agreement.
I understand that.
So it's not really an argument, it's a matter of semantics on how things happen. Any further discussion?
We have a motion.
Yeah, did we make a motion on this?
No motion, right? No
Table? You suggested it, it
There was
was
no motion.
twice suggested, it was never made.
Barnett, I would like to make a motion to
It
table,
would have stopped your conversation when he suggested it too the first time. But anyway, moving on.
Barnett, I'd like to make a motion to table this discussion and this agreement until the next council meeting, and giving the Humane Society and the city time to hash things out.
There's motion
Mikulowski, second.
and a second. Any further discussion?
No discussion.
Nope. All in favor? Yeah, you're right. Table.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. It'll be tabled to the next meeting. Approval of 2021 authorizing resolutions commit to match funds. This is page, is it 54?
53.
53.
53 and 54. I just want to point out, there are two items that will require your attention, so any motion should contain the text for both items. They're not numbered for the reason Steve mentioned earlier on the other resolution, but these are specific to the final detail that we need to complete for the application for a CDBG grant to fund the housing needs assessment. And I would note that there's a fiscal commitment to this, and that the city will pay its portion. I think it's 25% of the project cost.
You turn it.
54, thank you. Yep.
Rossing, I'd make a motion approving 2021, doesn't really have any more numbers on there. I don't know if that's wrong.
No,
but-
they're not numbered yet. so this
Okay,
would be number-
authorizing the resolution to commit match funds.
Holt,
And-
second. Oh.
And the authorizing resolution to submit an application.
And authorizing the resolution to submit, what was that again? Is
A
that-
community development block grant application.
The application, okay.
It's on page 53 in the packet.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
Is this a part of that whole ordinance we had passed last time?
Yeah,
With the-
correct.
Okay, all
Housing.
right.
These are the last details.
Oh, okay.
No further discussion? Actually, there's not a dollar amount on this, but seeing as how it does have a matching component, I'll ask Teresa to call roll.
Christopher Frederickson.
Actually, I don't vote on this.
Thomas
That's right.
Barnett.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Sorry. Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Larson. David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Discussion of the issue of a request for qualification for PFAS remediation and treatment vendors for wells 7 and 8. This is brought before the council so they understand the direction that we're heading with the remediation of 7 and 8 and getting those possibly back online. In the request for qualifications, there's a couple options. Obviously, there's proven vendors, there's historically proven vendors. If you follow the forum, we have cities that have gone before us, but there's also emerging technologies. So when they send in that request for qualifications, we want to understand the comfort level of this council as far as moving forward on the remediation of those wells and what your acceptance or tolerance for that is. I'm going to let Zach speak on it real quick.
Yeah, we just went through a pretty lengthy procurement with the shared ride taxi, and that was one form of procurement options the city has available to it as it selects various vendors for different solutions. In this case, we're proposing to do a request for qualifications, which would invite individuals and firms that have qualifications or experience in PFAS remediation to self-select and submit their letter of intent to the city. From there, we'll generate, the plan would be, or the proposal is to generate a request for proposals, which would be specifying what exactly we want them to respond to. So at this point, while we know intentionally we want to remove PFAS from the wells source 7 and 8, we don't necessarily know how we want them to do it and to what levels, et cetera, et cetera. So at this point, it's kind of a pre-qualification process for inviting prospective vendors to submit to the city for consideration. There will be no financial commitment. We wouldn't sign a contract with anybody, but again, soliciting their interest. We keep hearing from firms that are selling us a solution, and I think at this point, this is the most appropriate way to really funnel and filter the various potential sources out there, and really to invite a rounded group of proposers. Right now, we only know from those that have reached out to us and a few others that we've found through various research, but this will be a nice step, I think, forward if we want to, in fact, bring those 2 wells back into service for the benefit of the city's water supply.
Ryan.
I know this says on here discuss, but so basically what you're looking for is authorization to request the request for qualifications.
Yeah,
right?
Issue a solicitation essentially, right? Okay. We've drafted kind of an outline of what we want to see, and that's why there's nothing in your packet, because it's a bunch of technical terms, and then it would just have a deadline with some basic information that we want from the firms as to their response.
Once again, when you've watched the difficulties tonight, as far as do you come out with a contract first or a request for qualifications, or do you solicit the opinion of the council prior to that? Which direction do we take? So this is just a example of the other side where we're asking ideas before. Tom.
This doesn't really have to do with this per se, but I just wanted to say in front of everybody, the media, and anybody listening, that I think the city owes you, Mayor, a great debt of gratitude for all the work you've done in combating the PFAS issue in our city. A lot of people don't know what you actually have gone through to get this situation under control. I do. And I just want to say thank you from me and my family for taking this issue so seriously and helping our community.
I appreciate that, but I'm going to save thanks for when it's gone.
The hard work you've done so far is more than grateful. So,
Carrie?
So I've had specifically a company reach out to me numerous times regarding this process.
They're persistent.
That they are. So when you're asking for this request for qualifications, is that something that we'll get a draft of or something prior to How does the process work,
Sure.
I guess, so I can at least extend that request out to this company to feel free to answer back, I guess?
Good question. So essentially, the product that we'll receive from the solicitation will be a set of resumes, essentially, with their experience. And so at this point, we weren't going to bring back the formal request for qualifications unless there's desire to see it before we publish it. It really just says Rhinelander has an issue. We have a water source or maybe a petri dish, use the mayor's framing of it. And then we'll then bring that collection of vendors to a discussion that will be reviewed. So it's, again, not a commitment of any sorts. The commitment would follow, but essentially we would publish that like we did the request for proposals in other instances.
Right, so my question is where do you publish that? Like only in our local newspapers?
Good question.
or-
Well, we've probably got 6 or 7 sources identified. There's various research groups, nonprofits, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. I'll tell you, just the fact that we've talked about PFAS, and to Tom's point, the fact that the mayor has elevated this issue, a lot of people have Google alerts on PFAS, and I
Yeah.
think that's how a lot of people hear about Rhinelander's water issues, is because these firms are scouring the country for
And I'm
opportunities.
just wondering if it could be on our website
Yep,
so
it'd
that people
definitely be
can
there.
refer back to it.
Yeah, and we'll
Thank you.
certainly send an email out to everybody in case you have contacts or people that have reached out.
Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize Zach Ruank to issue a request for qualifications for PFAS remediation and treatment vendors for wells 7 and 8.
Mikulowski, second.
Okay. First of all, I believe for a request for qualifications, that's somewhat a formality. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate the backing by far, bar none, as we look for other things to move forward. What I would tell you, though, is one of the specifics I would like to get tonight in that discussion is your tenor for new technologies versus not, as far as those go. How far we write the request for proposals, or excuse me, request for qualifications has to do with you've had sites set up 5 times, or you've proven this to this point. And I know that this is a deep conversation that it's really hard to have out here, yet our direction in this will bring out certain vendors, more so than others. And then what your tenor for it is has to do with whether or not we would even look to accept them. So,
Well, I think in making the motion for a request for qualifications, as Zach said, this is kind of the first step to narrow down, to put them into the funnel and narrow them down. And at the request for proposal stage is when we'd get more specific about what we're looking for, correct?
excellent. Yep. Nope, that's fine. Anybody else? Ryan, you had your hand up for a second. Okay.
No, I was just gonna make a motion.
All right. Motion's been made
Eileen
and
did it.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Approval of a scope of service not to exceed $78,000 for the Timber Drive reconstruction. This is in your packet on page 55. Sorry. Bifocals and the masks don't work. They fog up, so I'm reading on my own again. Mark, if you want to stand up at the mic, just in case they have questions, but I'll wait.
I see that this has been extended up to the 17 bypass, where before it was strictly the south end, is that correct?
Go ahead and click on your mic, though, just so it's...
The grant was submitted from Stevens Street up to about Timber Heights Drive, so yeah, in conversations with administration and staff, we've extended it to the bypass.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know.
I think there's been quite a bit of work that's gone into this, so I'll make a motion to approve the scope of services not to exceed a cost of $78,000 for Timber Drive reconstruction.
Larson, second.
Here's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Larson?
Does this, did we ever decide if we were gonna do Timber Heights also?
That's not included on this, in this proposal.
Okay.
All right. Because it's a dollar amount, please call roll. And again, I don't vote.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Andrew Larson,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson, David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, Mark. Consider changing the semi-annual frequency for PFAS well testing. Understand that if 7 and 8 were to go back online in any way, shape, or form, that would be tested more frequently. Jim, would you like to talk about test results up to this point as far as what you've seen and the cost to the city as far as running a test is it monthly right now, or do we go bi-monthly? I know that was a discussion also.
Currently, we're testing bi-monthly.
Okay.
We're testing all the in-service wells year-round. We're only testing 7 and 8 seasonally because prior to sampling, we'll flush about 20,000 gallons prior to sampling. So in the wintertime, that makes a big ice slick out there. So the cost of testing is $250 per test. And again, currently we're testing bi-monthly, so that's $1,250 per round of testing. If we change from bi-monthly testing to quarterly testing, we would save the utility $2,500 a year. Over the last year, the test results have been quite low. The proposed limits are 20 parts per trillion. The highest test result we've had from the in-service wells was less than 7 parts per trillion. So we're not stopping testing, we're just bumping it out from bi-monthly to quarterly for that $2,500 per year savings to the utility.
Thank you.
Is this a motion required?
I'll request a motion, yes.
Okay, okay. Well, I will make a motion to approve changing the changing to semi-annual frequency for PFAS well testing.
Daniel, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? One of the things we noticed was even from well 7 to well 8, when well 7 originally popped or tested positive for higher ratings in PFHXS and PFAS, PFOA, it took, I think, almost 4 to 5 months for well 8 to also, and they're how far apart? 400 feet apart. So as far as that goes, it's safe to say if the chemical's traveling, we'll be able to pick it up in those periods of time. Tom?
I guess my only question would be, Jim, are you okay with that? Yes. Okay.
And for the record, that was yes for the people out there.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, I've talked to Jim a couple times about this, and he seems to be fairly comfortable with this, you know, after 7 and 8 have been shut down with the very low levels of the PFAS that have come up. So I'm comfortable with this if he is, which he's told me he is, so, and he's back up to the podium.
And again, with the testing history over the last year, we've seen very low numbers across the system. We will still continue to test, just not as frequently. If we would see any increase across the system, we would certainly bump up the frequency back to bi-monthly or even monthly, if the numbers would show that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Bills and claims in the amount of $2,046,314.40. This is page 56 in your packet, and we were passed around earlier.
I will make a motion to accept bills and claims and approve bills and claims in the amount of $2,046,314.40.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions? Teresa, please call roll.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Andrew Larson,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson, David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. Unfinished business, update on the administrator search. Once again, Doreen's welcome on board and is an extreme professional and outlined and steps are in order. I can tell you that the March 1st or the end of the thing is definitely within reach, and I have confidence in this team. We met with Henry and discussed his portion of what we can accomplish beforehand, and we hired an amazing professional in Doreen, so that's cool. I'm very confident in this process moving forward, that it'll be handled correctly, and we will have a product at the end that's excellent. Any questions? All right. The rest are future agenda items. Does anybody have anything you want to add to that at this time? Tom?
I would like to add on to the future agenda. I've been approached and requested that there's a new magazine coming out. It's very positively pro Rhinelander, and I think it's wonderful. And she wants to come in and give a presentation to the city council, and I said I would get her on the agenda to do so. Carrie Bladorn's also involved in this.
Okay.
So I'd like that on the agenda for the presentation. Also, I would like not really an update, just a FYI to us of how things are going with the winter road snow removal and the curbs and all of that, like on Brown Street.
Sidewalks.
And, yeah, I just want to know how that's going so far, because we implemented some new things, and I would like an update.
Okay. Eileen?
I was just wondering, I looked through Tara's report, and there's nothing, that the downtown camera system seems to have fallen off of the radar, and I'm just wondering if that's something people are still, if that's something the city is still looking into.
Okay.
If we could add that
We'll
to
have
an
an update.
agenda. Yeah,
Yep.
that would be great. Just an update from Tara. If you have any information on where we're at with that, that would be great.
Excellent. Anything else? If nothing else, we are adjourned.